Hi, everyone. Welcome to Summer Meals, Developing Menus and Serving High-Quality Meals, hosted by the Food Research and Action Center, or FRAC. I'm Steve Hayward, FRAC's Senior Communications Coordinator. Before we begin, I'd like to cover a few brief housekeeping items. We expect this webinar to run about 60 minutes. We're recording the presentation and we'll share the recording and slides in a follow-up email. Closed captioning is available. To turn captions on, click the CC button in the bottom taskbar. If you don't see the CC button, select the three dots on the right side of the taskbar and click Show Captions. At the end of the presentation, there will be time for questions and answers. To ask a question, we ask that you please use the Q&A tab. With that, I'll pass it off to Clarissa Hayes, Deputy Director, School and Out-of-School Time Programs at FRAC.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on developing menus and serving high quality meals. So despite what the date says on this slide, we will be hosting this today on the 26th. So like Steve mentioned, my name is Clarissa Hayes and I'm Deputy Director of School and Out of School Time Meals at FRAC. And I am very lucky to be able to work on the summer and after school nutrition program. So I'm very excited that you all could join us and just to be covering this topic today. So this is the second webinar in our series on Back to Summer Meals Basics. And if you would like to find our previous recordings, those are on our website, and you can also register for future events, which we'll also detail later in the webinar. So I am looking forward to today's conversation because we know that menu planning is really one of the most important components of building a successful summer meals program and really begins early in the process when you start to think about summer meals. So like with all of the federal nutrition programs, there are, of course, meal pattern requirements with the summer food service program and the seamless summer, but obviously there's a wide range of what that can look like. And we all know that if children don't like the meals that they are getting at a site, then they won't come back. So there are some ways that new and existing programs can make small changes to increase the appeal and the quality of the meals that are being served at summer meals. So we're very excited for that conversation. So whether you're an existing sponsor, there's time to think back on your programs in previous years to see what worked and what could be changed. And if you are new to summer meals, now is definitely the time to start thinking about your menus and working with your state agency. And we hope you leave with some new ideas and tips and tricks to think about as we go into the summer months. So with that, let's go ahead to the next slide and take a look at what we will be covering today, because we have some really wonderful speakers joining us that represent the whole spectrum of the summer meals landscape. So starting us off today will be Rachel Poland from USDA FNS. She is going to cover some of USDA's resources that they have for menu development and more on the meal pattern. And then from there, we're going to go to the state level. So we have Rick Parks and Kalitha Anderson from the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, and that is the state agency in Florida, they are going to cover some of the tips and tricks that they provide to the sponsors in Florida as they think about menus. And obviously we know not everyone on the webinar today is from Florida, but these tips can apply to sponsors in other states as well. And then last but not least, we'll have Michelle Kim from Montgomery County Public Schools in Maryland cover their insight and a look at their planning as they pull together their summer menus. And then to close this out, we will just cover some of the resources that FRAC has to help you with menus and thinking through how to improve the quality and appeal of the food being served during the summer months. So again, very excited for this conversation. I would just reiterate what Steve said. If you do have any questions for us or any of the speakers as we go along, to feel free to use that Q&A feature that's at the bottom of your screen. All right, next slide, please. All right, so I would love to start us off with just a little interaction. So we are going to go ahead and do a poll for today. So if you are a summer food or seamless summer sponsor, so you've operated the program before, what are you hoping to explore in summer 2023 when it comes to your menus or meals? So are you looking to serve more local foods, increase variety, offer taste tests and ask for feedback on meals, strengthen your relationship with your vendor, or other. And if you have something else to share around this, we would love if you could just go ahead and share that in the chat box. And again, if you aren't a sponsor yet, you can feel free to share what you're hoping to learn as well. So I'll give everybody just about 30 seconds or so to fill that out, and then we'll come back together and move on. All right, I'll give folks about 15 more seconds, and I'm already seeing some great responses in the chat box. So, looking for creative ways to plan menus, looking for meals that can be served cold and delivered safely up to 40 miles away. And then again, another one around planning menus for sites that you can't have hot food at. So that's great. Thank you all so much. We'll go ahead and close out the poll and see what we have from folks. All right. So it looks like increased variety is definitely the winner here with looking ahead to the summer. And then the other options that I see here are serving more local foods and then offering taste tests and getting that feedback from participants. So that's great. Definitely some things that we'll cover today and have some follow-up resources on. All right. So feel free to keep using that chat box, but we're going to go ahead and move on to the next slide. And what I wanted to do is just kind of take a step back and think through why we wanted to talk about menus and meal quality, especially in January when it's cold outside. It's hard to think about summer, but this really is, like I mentioned before, such a essential building block of a successful summer food program. And when we talk about meal quality, it can definitely mean many things, and it can really be represent a whole host of things. So, appeal, is it appetizing to children? Do they want to consume that meal? Is there variety, which I know came up in the poll? So, are menus varied as much as possible within the constraints of the program? Are the meals that are being served culturally appropriate? And are they of high nutritional quality? So, those are really the things that we think about at FRAC when we think about meal quality. And then I just wanted to reiterate the point around if these meals are high quality, that does translate to high participation, which translates to increased reimbursement, which just means overall sustainability of the summer food programs. So, really, again, and next slide, if you are new to the summer food service program, there are two main service options. And I would just flag that within this, there is a possibility of combining these or using some at some sites and some at the other. But really, when we talk about menu development and meals, there are kind of two options. So the first one is self prep. So this means that the meals are being prepared on site. It means that the sites generally have the equipment and the resources needed to prepare those meals safely. And what we see often with this is that a sponsor may prepare meals at each site location, or it could be happening at a central location. And then those are then transported to the individual servings or the meal sites. So there are some benefits to this model if this is something that you are looking to explore. So you do have more control over the meals served, and there is a higher reimbursement per meal served if you're doing self prep. The other option is vended. So, unlike self prep, these meals are already prepared from an approved licensed vendor. So, there is really little to no food preparation done at the site. And sponsors, so those that are running the program, are responsible for finding a vendor for their sites through the procurement process. So, again, there are benefits to this model as well. There's more flexibility to serve meals at different types of sites. So I know someone mentioned some open sites that you really can't serve hot food at. So a vended model could potentially work really well for that. And then if you're not prepping the food and doing all that work, there is less staff time needed to prepare those meals. So really it is exploring what would work best for you, but we did just want to set the scene with some of these different options because we know that our speakers will be touching on some of these components later on in the webinar. Next slide. So one resource that I just wanted to highlight before I turn it over to USDA is a guide that we did on purchasing high quality summer meals. And this is really for those sponsors that want to be that vended model. So, like I mentioned, there is a procurement part of that. So you have to work with a vendor to get those meals that you then serve at your site. And we know that there are lots of different components to this, and your state agency is going to be your best friend when it comes to this. But this guide really is it provides strategies around strengthening your contract language, improving your vendor communication, and then if you need to in your area, if you're just not getting what you need, different ways to increase competition. So I wanted to highlight this because I know this is a question that we get many times is from those sponsors who are working with vendors and need some tips and tricks on how to work that process. So again, feel free to check out this resource, which is on our website, and then your state agency would be able to provide training and more insight on that process. All right. Last slide before I turn it over to Rachel. Just generally, some of the things that we think about again as we think about meal quality and appeal is considering variety and those cultural preferences of communities, incorporating fresh and local foods when possible, which we know is really key in the summer months, which that is the growing season for many states. Making sure you're getting that feedback on the options that are being served. And I know some schools and other partners often serve the same menu options they do during the school year, during the summer months, if they know that they're popular. Thinking about the packaging and the visual appeal of the meals that are going to participants, and then to reduce food waste, really utilizing those shared tables and traveling apple. So I would just leave you with one thing to think about. So as we go through the webinar, your strategies and tips and tricks for serving high quality meals, feel free to share that in the chat box. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and have us move on to the next slide. And I'm going to turn it over to Rachel from USDA FNS, who's going to talk through some of their amazing resources that they have on menu planning and summer food. So Rachel, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks so much. Hi, my name is Rachel Hayes Polon. I am a Senior Technical Advisor in the Child Nutrition Programs at the USDA Food and Nutrition Service, or FNS. I'm also a registered dietitian who is passionate about child nutrition, so I'm really excited to be here with you all today to talk about high quality meals in the summer months. Thanks to Clarissa as well as the entire FRAC team for hosting this great webinar series and for inviting us to be a part of it today. So with my time today, I will highlight a few tools and resources that are available to help you navigate the nutrition aspects of the Summer Food Service Program, or SFSP. We love our acronyms in government. And I'll also discuss our summer meal recognition program, which is called Turnip the Beat. Next slide, please. Thanks. So for those of you who are already program operators, you may not need this information, but for those of you who are considering stepping into this world, I just wanted to take a moment to provide some really basic information about just the SFSP nutrition and meal pattern requirements overall. And don't worry, I know there's a lot of small writing on this slide, and everything that is on the slide is actually available at the website that I've highlighted here. So at its most basic level, that every single meal and snack that is served through the SFSP must meet certain nutrition standards. And these are all identified in the Code of Federal Regulations. And for SFSP, what this largely means is that foods from a variety of food groups must be served. We're looking for well-balanced meals, as Clarissa alluded to in her remarks. So on this slide, I am using the example of the lunch or supper meal pattern. As you can see here, lunches and suppers require fluid milk. They require 2 different fruits and vegetables totaling at least 3/4 of a cup. They require 1 grain bread serving and 1 meat or meat alternate serving. And by servings, that's what is a serving of grains or meat alternates is detailed in columns 2 and 3 of this. So this is this is lunch and supper. And likewise, we have similar requirements for breakfast as well as snacks. So within those components, there is a fair amount of flexibility of what can be served. And, of course, from USDA's perspective, we strongly encourage program operators to maximize the nutritional value of the meals. Our goal is really nutrition security as well as food security. And so we're looking to help kids consume the nutrients that they need to develop and really to thrive. So we have a number of resources to this effect available on our FNS website. And today I'll be highlighting 3 of those resources. Those are the SFSP Toolkit, the SFSP Nutrition Guide, and our Team Nutrition Summer Foods, Summer Moves Activity Guide. Next slide. So first I'll talk a moment about the toolkit. For those of you who have been around for a while, you may have seen this. The toolkit is loaded with information on the full breadth of summer operations. However, for today's purposes, I'd like to zone in on the nutritious meals section. And looks like the slide is a little bit off, but I will be able to share the website for this later. So there are 3 particular pieces I'd like to call your attention to, and that is menu planning, healthy summer meals, and sample menus. So the menu planning resource within the toolkit explains basically what should be taken into consideration when developing menus and the importance of things like standardized recipes and cycle menus. The Healthy Summer Meals resource, in turn, is talks about more nitty-gritty, like how to incorporate more whole grains, how to offer a wider variety of fruits and vegetables, and how to choose lower sodium foods. And finally, the sample menu resource really kind of puts all of those tips together and puts it into like a concrete example of what a menu looks like that incorporates all of these principles. Now, with all of that being said, I do want to say that the toolkit, it's been around for a while and it could use a little sprucing up. So we are on the case. We're working to give it a little bit of a facelift and get it back in ship shape. But in the meantime, there's still a lot of valuable information that you can use. And we still have the toolkit on our website while we are working to spruce it up. So next slide. So the next tool that I would like to talk about is the nutrition guide. Now, this is more of a handbook. It's a more in-depth resource that offers guidance on a variety of topics, including menu planning, and that includes more sample menus. There's also, of course, information on nutrition, as the title suggests, and that includes allowable food items as well as guidelines surrounding the various food components that are required. There's information on crediting foods, on food purchasing and storage, and information on food safety and sanitation, which of course is a key aspect of any meal delivery program. And next slide. So this is just a sample of the type of information that is in the nutrition guide. So using milk here as an example, this guide illustrates allowable food items within each component. You can see here there are several choices of milk that may be served. And this also shows how foods can be used to meet the meal pattern requirements. And so in this case, for example, 1 cup of milk is required at meals or snacks. And then if you look at the breakfast meal, milk may be served as a beverage, it may be served on cereal, or it may be served as a combination of both. Next slide. So also in the guide, as I mentioned, there are more sample menus, and these are specifically cycle menus. And these menus show how all of the meal pattern requirements are incorporated into a menu, and also takes it a step above that. So kind of to the points that Clarissa again was mentioning earlier, what really elevates the menu. And so we're looking at things like how to incorporate hot food items when we can, how to make sure that there are culturally appropriate food items incorporated, and that kind of thing. So these sample menus, may be good to draw from as you're developing your own menus. And finally, I would like to highlight the Summer Foods, Summer Moves Activity Guide. And this was really developed to get kids kind of excited about nutrition and physical activity during the summer months. The guide is centered around 4 basic goals, and those goals are drink smart to play hard, choose more fruits and veggies, limit screen time, and get active. And the guide contains a bunch of activities that you can do at your site, centered around different themes, around these goals. There are step-by-step instructions, there are games, activities, information on how to do food tastings, how to do demonstrations, and all kinds of activities at your meal site to get kids more excited, not just about, coming and eating the meal, but kind of looking at nutrition and the broader context. So with my last minute or two, I just wanted to switch gears and talk about Turn Up the Beat, our high quality summer meals sponsor recognition program. And this is an annual effort by FNS to recognize outstanding summer meal sponsors across the nation who work hard and really go above and beyond to serve high quality meals. So the recognition program is completely voluntary at both the state and sponsor level, but it has proven to be a popular initiative. It's a feel-good initiative that people really like, and we're more than happy to do it. So summer meal sponsors who are interested in applying for recognition must complete a nomination form that they submit to their state agencies. And there are two key pieces to this nomination form. First, there's a series of just a handful of short answer questions. And here we try to capture how sponsors are serving meals that are age appropriate, how to serve meals that are culturally appropriate, how you're getting kids, how you're encouraging them to eat healthy foods, and what kind of food and nutrition activities are offered at the site. So have those questions. The second piece of it is that we ask for a 1-month menu to be submitted, and for the menu to have sufficient detail that reviewers can really take a look at it and get a sense of the nutritional quality and where sponsors are going above and beyond. So for example, we have a whole point system, and points are awarded for things like serving locally produced foods, serving whole grains, serving fresh fruits and vegetables. There's a wide variety of ways to go above and beyond that can be mixed and matched to the sponsor's needs. So, my next slide, thanks. So if you are interested in learning more about Turn Up the Beat, we do have a whole webpage dedicated to that. And you can actually just Google Turn Up the Beat, FNS, and that should be the first hit. And on our page, we do have an overview of the award. We have a list of award winners from the past year. We also have the nomination form and a link to resources for serving high quality meals. And many of those are the ones that I had talked about. So this is another way to get to those. I will say, if you're interested, we still have the 2022 nomination form on our website, but we will be updating that in the coming weeks with information for 2023. You can go ahead and take a peek at 2022 to get an idea of the kind of thing that we're asking. And I did want to note before I leave that last year we awarded 84 summer meal sponsors across the country with Turn Up the Beat awards. And we have 3 levels: gold, silver, and bronze. And we expect to announce the 2022 award winners. I saw someone just asked a question within the next few weeks. So stay tuned for that, and we'll do some publicity and we'll update our website according to that. With that, I believe I have used all my time, maybe a little bit more. So thank you so much for your attention. And even more so, thank you for your interest in serving high quality meals to kids in the summer months. Have a good afternoon.
Great. Thank you so much, Rachel. And I would just, emphasize the resources that USDA has on their website and some of those toolkit pages, even though I know you said they haven't been updated in a while. I know I go back to them all the time and find them very helpful. And yeah, definitely check out Turn Up the Beat. I'm sure everyone on this webinar will be an awardee after everything you're going to learn on today's webinar. So very excited about that. Awesome. Alrighty. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next set of speakers. We have Rick Parks and Kalitha Anderson from the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services to talk about the guidance and tips and tricks that they give to sponsors in their state. So I will turn it over to.
Thank you, Clarissa. So yes, I'm Rick Parks, and I'm the Nutrition Standards Director for the Division of Food, Nutrition, and Wellness So we're one of, I believe, 13 divisions inside the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. I think we can just say FDACS to shorten that a little bit. But we've done some recent work on updating some of our menu planning resources, and Kalitha was the team lead for that. And so she'll be sharing today as well. And we kind of teased the presentation here with planning stellar summer meals, not just planning summer meals. So we hope that we can deliver some good ideas and information for you guys today. And we thank you for your attendance. You will see later on the slides, we have branded the summer food service program in Florida to be the summer break spot. So you'll see that terminology and use inside the materials as we move forward. But you can go to the next slide, please. And the next slide. And one more. So we just want to, cover on summer meal plan. So what are some things to keep in mind? And so just as already mentioned by the other speakers, be mindful of the summer meal patterns. And I can't say enough about the summer nutrition guide that was mentioned. That is something I refer to all the time. And it looks to be very up to date as far as the content. It has the food safety information as well as the sample menus and sample meals. So that's a real nice resource that we refer to and send out the link to program sponsors often. And there's a lot there that can be used to apply to your programs as well. So actually, I think I may have stepped on Kalitha's toes there. So she was supposed to have taken over. So I'll let her continue on.
Thank you, Rick. No problem at all. Okay, so as Rick said, we'll go ahead and kick off some Fun the Sun summer food service planning tips. And as Rick mentioned, being mindful of those patterns. So knowing the meal component requirements and the minimum portion sizes, that's going to be key in planning and offering complete and reimbursable meals. Next, we like to encourage sponsors to choose lower fat food items such as low fat or fat-free milk, reminding them that lower fat milk contains just as much essential nutrients such as calcium and potassium when compared to whole fat milk. Being bright and being bold with those meal components, especially in the fruit and vegetable component. So you can think of this as taking an opportunity to add a pop of color in your menu or introducing in-season produce to children. Next slide, please. So as Rachel mentioned, nutrition is the name of the game. And we like to encourage sponsors to go for more whole grain options, such as a whole grain bagel during breakfast, whole wheat bread for a sandwich during lunch, or tortilla chips and dip as a snack. Next, we have planning protein options for your meat alternates, and planning a variety of those options throughout your meals, such as lean meats and poultry, yogurt, or low-fat cheese, or plant-based options such as beans, peas, nuts, and seeds. And last but certainly not least, simmering down on the sodium or slowing down on sodium options. So being mindful to limit those high sodium foods and looking for foods that are naturally low in sodium or canned foods that are labeled either low sodium, reduced sodium, or no salt added. And I will pass it back over to you, Rick.
So if you can go on to the next slide, please. So one of the things we wanted to cover is just definitely have a plan of action, a written processes in place, whether that's how you're going to order your food, receive your food, the menu plans that you're going to have, how you're going to serve the children, what might you do with the leftovers. And then as indicated in some of the other presentations, considerations for, delivery and shipping foods that may be to remote sites. And one thing that seems to be real popular, and just one of the things that we encourage folks to look at is, maybe what's going on in the food industry at large, even in grocery store, retail areas. Some of the quick grab and go combination items you'll see convenience stores, as well as gas stations with a lot of the open air coolers, and they'll have hummus with veggie sticks inside a cup, or they'll have sandwiches with a variety of other options, perhaps pretzel chips or something like that. So be looking at what you can do to have some quick combination entree items as sort of your base, and then add the fresh produce when you can, when it's in season and at a good price, and then always have perhaps a backup canned fruits or frozen items that you can use for hot days or for emergencies when something doesn't come in that's being delivered. So always kind of plan ahead again with those processes and have those in place. And then keep your thermometers calibrated and ready to use, and then have those coolers handy. And I know sometimes ice is a limited commodity when it's being used a lot during one day. And so having adequate ice access is probably ideal, especially in the summer months. So if you can, perhaps use other methods to keep foods cold. They do have the ice packs that you can freeze, perhaps larger containers, pre-chilling fruits that are pre-portioned, or perhaps juices and milk, sort of super cool before they're delivered. You can go to the next slide, please. So we did come up with a plan, an acronym here. So we just wanted to mention each of these. So plan around the limit to cycle menu. This allows you to strive for consistency and quality, and look for opportunities to celebrate. So program sponsors, the staff at the site level, at the sponsor level, work hard, and sometimes it goes unrecognized for the efforts you guys do. So when you can, as if you're in a leadership role, whether that's a site supervisor or maybe a mainline cook or senior person inside the sponsorship, then look for ways to recognize staff and have some fun as well. So a lot of times the volunteer is of course unpaid, and they are doing the things they do because they love children, or they love meeting a need, those types of things. So that may be all the thanks they really are looking for, just to be up and be an active part. But being told that and recognized is always a good way to celebrate as well. And then always document, and when in doubt, make use of program resources. So here in Florida, we have a small team of different sections. So we're in the nutrition standards section. We have a program eligibility section, and they help with the online application. And they also have a training and technical assistance team. So all these parts work together to help be a resource to provide a variety of materials and training for summer sponsors. And then the end is never give up on making a difference in the lives of others. You can go to the next slide, please. So just wanted to talk about the cycle menu planning tips. So create the cycle menus for consistency across multiple locations if you can. Ideally, you'll set one menu plan that is workable in all locations. And of course, you want to consider preparation and storage while planning those menus. What can you reasonably store at maybe a main production facility? What may need to be stored offsite or at the site level? So maybe breads and produce can be stored at the site level, but the main dishes, the larger items that need more storage perhaps has to be stored in the main kitchen. And then take advantage of cross-utilization to control cost. And we do have a resource that actually Kalitha, again, took team lead on. And that cross-utilization basically is using items more than one way. So the hamburger patty for the cheeseburger, the hamburger, perhaps more of a Salisbury steak with mashed potatoes type meal. So it's the same hamburger patty, but used multiple ways. Other things might be like popcorn chicken with Asian vegetables and rice, popcorn chicken with, again, mashed potatoes, green beans, more of a home style meal. So trying to use, quality items that have proper child nutrition labeling if it's a manufactured breaded item, and going from there. So you kind of have, again, a plan and checking vendors for the sodium, the fat content, and those types of things as as price and quality allows. And next slide, please. So standardized recipes, what exactly is that? Well, it's one of those items that is planned out, listed the meal items or the ingredients, the recipe items, the portions, the yield, how much either weight or measure for each ingredient. So a lot of times we think about that being the true standardized recipe, but it could be a standard operated procedure too, because you're going to take a sweet and sour sauce and mix it with this chicken nugget. Well, how much chicken nuggets do you need, or how much vegetables? So it's really sort of a quick scratch. But you still need some standardized recommendations or guidelines around that, so that you're consistent across all your sites that are doing meal prep, and that you just like a McDonald's or any fast food location you go, it's going to be the same product anywhere in the country or the world. So trying to be standardized, again, documenting those processes. And we talk about easily duplicated recipes. Again, it could just be things like a yogurt parfait with fresh or frozen fruit, yogurt, and granola. And one thing I really wanted to focus on, I kind of mentioned the child nutrition label. So if you do purchase items that are manufactured with the breading and meat or meat alternates, that you'd have that child nutrition or product formulation statement to document the grain and meat components from those items. But probably the last item really to talk about is the acceptability among children, and then looking at your population. If you have some younger children that maybe don't like spicy foods, and older children that that's one of the things they like. Then sour foods. So just a variety of things to consider when us as adults try to plan these menus. So definitely talking to the children and the participants and trying to see what can we do better, what do you like, what don't you like so much. And it could be the child just has a picky affinity towards not liking a lot of food. So sometimes you're going to have those outliers, and you just have to look at the majority and kind of see where things are going and trending. And I think that was my last slide. Yep.
So as Rick mentioned, next slide, please. So as Rick mentioned, we branded the summer food service program as the summer break spots, where kids can come in, they can grab a bite to eat, no matter if they are in the Panhandle or if they're way down south in the Florida Keys. They can click on this map, choose a location, and go and enjoy the summer break spots location. And just as a note, this map does remain current as it is uploaded and refreshed twice daily. Next slide, please. So I'd like to just take a moment to just brag on our awesome outreach team, because they do a phenomenal job in getting the message out there through on-site and online advertising, or through educational materials that we'll see up next. So here we have our Keeping Hot Foods Hot and Cold Foods Cold tip sheets, which provides food safety tips for our sponsors. Next. And here we have our summer food service snack menu tip sheet, where we educate the sponsors on the meal patterns and provide visual examples of pairing up different food components or food components with additional foods to create the ultimate snack. Next. And we have our Planning Stellar Summer Food Service Menus Toolkit. Here, the sponsors can find menu planning tips, the meal patterns, cycle menu planning tips, and with sample cycle menu to go with it. And then to close it out, they also have standardized recipe resources as well. Next slide. And lastly, I'd like to introduce you guys to our group of dynamic dietitians, starting off with Rick, as you guys have met today. And our team lead, Sydney Kelly and Jamie Birch, they are all in Tallahassee. Ashley Shelton, and our newest dietitian to the gang, Kristen Gonzalez. They're located in our Jacksonville regional office, and myself in the Miami Doral office. Thank you guys so much for having us on, and we will turn it back over to you, Clarissa.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you, Rick, as well. There's some really great insight there. And I know, again, not everyone is from Florida, but I think everyone is okay with borrowing resources, and, you know, no one wants to reinvent the wheel. So I will make sure that all of those resources are linked in the email that goes out after this. And I would just echo what Rick said about the need to celebrate all the amazing work that's being done. We know summer food is a very short program. It takes a lot of work and a lot of people and a lot of effort. So I think that celebration component is really important. So thank you both again so much. And yes, the Break Spot website is amazing. And I love that map. I recommend it to everybody as a tool to create in their own states. Great. Alrighty. So we have about 20 minutes left. So more than enough time for our next speaker and then some questions. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Michelle Kim from Montgomery County Public Schools in Maryland, who's going to talk from the district level about what they think about when they develop their summer menus. So Michelle, I'll go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Kim. I am the Trainer and Special Program Supervisor for Montgomery County Public Schools. We are in Maryland. We are the largest county within Maryland. We have 210 schools, but during the summer months, we have well over 200 program locations, easily, if not more. So we kind of waver between the two. So I'll go into a lot of those little different things, but just a little bit of a background. Next slide. So just an overview of what MCPS, Montgomery County Public Schools Summer, our meal service program looks like. So summer meal sites, they could be our area eligible school locations. Once again, everything has to, since we do no longer have those waivers for area eligibility, we do have to go by area eligibility or by a roster. So it's the other way that sometimes we can get away with certain schools being able to still feed certain schools by just taking their roster and doing farms percentages on them to see if we can qualify them. But some of our other sites, we do daycares, community centers, park sites. We have actually 2 mobile set locations. And one of our, either our refrigerated trucks and or we do one of our larger vans with huge coolers. They will go from one location to the other. So the other one's at like a mobile home, and then that van will then go over to the library, and they're run by one of our rec community partners who have camps in those locations that are severely needy areas. And we're able to, once again, be able to take a vehicle and kind of do a mobile hotspot at 2 different locations for those sites that aren't in maybe housed in one of our schools or a daycare or a community center per se. We do camps, and we also have walk-in locations, which are open locations. So we're kind of similar in the aspect with Florida, except the state of Maryland, so MSDE, our state, they actually do kind of the map that Florida does, but at the Maryland level. So if you go to their website and you chat in, you know, like where your address is, it will pop up, especially within Montgomery County Public Schools, the closest walk-in location, and you can then go to, and that might be a school, it might be one of the community centers, it could be one of the parks. Anyone that's considered an open location is a walk-in area. So any child 18 years and younger can go to that location and grab a meal. Next slide. So our menus, we have a lot of combinations. As I said, we are a really big summer program. So our menus are very different. We have a lot of different menus that run at the same time. So this is actually the time of the year that we start looking at the menus for summer. And I know Chris has just said in the beginning, you know, like it's January, right? Summer is not for, you know, well, think about it, another 6 months, right? We start planning probably in December. So we've already been starting to talk about menus. We do have hot meal programs. So our larger ELO schools, high volume schools will have actually hot programs. So they will have hot breakfast and hot lunch. So we do have, we hire our cafeteria staff during the summer months. and they will work a 5-week program that's at that particular school location. So we only do hot meal programs within our actual school locations, because otherwise you can't really heat at a community center, and it's our staff worrying about sanitation and temperatures and just food safety in general. So we do have hot meal programs, and then the rest of our programs, so those camps, those offsites, anything that's offsite, not a school, an actual brick and mortar school within MCPS, will be a cold program. But breakfast is a weekly cycle in our hot program. And our lunches, we try to mix up as much as possible. We try not to do the same maybe 2-week cycle. I know that might be easier for a lot of different smaller programs. We try to throw some different things in there when we can, but it's also about what we are able to do with the support that we have within those schools. So certain items might be more difficult to prep. And if I only have one manager on site to try and serve 200 kids for, a hot meal program, trying to divvy up French fries and doing chicken nuggets at the same time, there's labor there. So those are things that we have to think about when we're looking at these menus. And for our cold meal programs, once again, they're non-school locations, and we do have some cold bag meal programs in our schools if the participation is a lot lower. So we usually have a cap number of like 75 is usually the number that we go by, and if they're under 75, we will still give them the program, but it will be a cold bag. We wouldn't be able to supply a actual body to do hot meal program there. For the cold meals, we once again have a weekly breakfast cycle menu. And then for lunch, it's a 2-week cycle. Once again, we try and mix it up here and there if we can with different items that might just be random. Something that we might have come up with, like a new creative idea. We might just put that on the menu if we can. And all of our cold stuff is brought in or made in our central production facility. So we do have our own CPF, our central production facility, where all of the cold bagged meals come out of. And then we also have our own warehouse. So everything that we bring in from vendors comes to our warehouse, and we divvy out from there. Then our trucks then take out to our school sites, as well as then during summer out to our summer locations. Next slide, please. So we look at what's available. So right now we definitely look at what's available for summer when we're creating these menus. It's not going to always be the same items that we have during the school year. So that's the time when we're talking to vendors and seeing what's going to be available so we can start creating that menu. Things that we keep in mind, labor, labor time, like I was saying earlier, it takes a lot more labor to divvy up, French fries from, bag into boats, then maybe something that's already prepackaged or already a whole piece, right? So labor time, availability, and definitely variety. We have at least one seasonal fresh fruit and vegetable on the menu daily. We do take pride in that. We try really hard, even though we are a really large program. We definitely incorporate that into our cold bagged meals as well. So, and that could be anything from plums, peaches. We get cut up melon and in our central production facility, they'll come in whole packaged, and then they will cup them up and they'll put them in those bagged meals. So we try to get in as much seasonal fruits as we possibly can. We offer a cookout option, actually, so you can order 2 weeks in advance at some of our sites, and that will include actually a whole fresh watermelon, as well as, we'll do hot dogs and buns, carrots and milk. So that's how we can kind of zhuzh up like what a kind of like a cookout would be and make it a little bit more fun. So if that site's able to do it, then we can still supply the necessary needs and then they can serve it. We do self-prep as well as pre-packaged vendors. So I know that Florida was talking about this as well. I was saying our central production facility, we bring a lot of stuff in and we make it and send it out from our own central production facility. We also on site, our staff, and especially in the hot meal programs, they will be bringing in product, but then they're cooking on site, prepping meals just like the regular school year. on site and through the line. We also bring in vendor already prepackaged items, such things as like sandwiches that are already prepackaged. Sometimes that's what might go in some of these, our cycle menus for our whole bagged meals. Anything from the sandwiches, like our, apples, like as sliced apples, they're fresh produce, right? But they're already come prepackaged, sliced. So those are just kind of an example. Next slide. So what to look out for? So I know with a lot of chips have kind of been given out. We are a very large, obviously, operation. There's a lot of people that work on summer. I just happen to be the coordinator that kind of makes sure that all the moving pieces are kind of running. But definitely reaching out to your community partners. We have a lot of community partners within Montgomery County Public Schools. We work with them year round. So it's kind of one of those things that we are just always looking out for. But for anyone who's looking at trying to either expand or start or whatever that might be, definitely just reaching out to your community partners that are around. They can definitely help with not only getting the word out, but just being, your right arm for different areas that you possibly need. Reaching out to any of your existing relationships with rec partners. Like for us, we have several different rec partners. Montgomery Rec is one of our larger ones. We do a lot of their community centers during the summer months. But then we have City of Gaithersburg Rec and we have Rockville Rec. So all these different rec departments who might have different community centers throughout the county take up a majority, or probably almost like half of our sites right there. And promoting your program with flyers, signage, and like I said, word of mouth, definitely with those community partners or just like schools, parents, parent groups, like all those different things. We definitely try to get our word out by that. And just connecting with your vendors now, like your current vendors, seeing what's out there, just talking about like menus and what to look for, just reaching out to your vendors now if you've got them, and seeing what's going to be possible during the summer months to help you be able to, one, plan a little bit better for what's coming through, and just knowing what's going to be available. So that way you're not kind of stressing towards, the back end. So those are some things that we definitely look for. Like I said, we are a very large county and we have a really large summer program. So there's a lot of us that work through this, but we definitely start, it's like a year, it's a year-long thing. I'll say that much. It's like summer's over, but no, now you got to start for the next summer. So we've been starting since December, planning for this coming summer. And so that's Montgomery County Public Schools.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Michelle. And it's funny, like here I was thinking January was early and you guys were already doing this in December. So
If we don't, we
no,
won't
that's
get it
amazing.
done.
Right. Well, I think it's just such a great example too, that like it doesn't have to be one set way. Like you were, you highlighted how it's different for vended and different for self-prep, and you guys make it work with your different community partners. I think that was just a good example of that. And I will just highlight that we do have a webinar in a couple of months on working with partners. And I think meals and, using local foods, like all those things can really be a big part of partnerships. So I want to leave time if anyone has any questions for our speakers. I know there was a lot of great information shared, but just quickly wanted to highlight a few resources that we have. I'm sure everyone knows about our reports and different data tools. I did want to highlight again those menu development tools. So using local foods, we have a guide on that and the different ways to achieve that. And then that guide I mentioned earlier in the presentation on serving high quality meals. All of this and more is at frac.org. And I think I said this in the last webinar, but I'll say it again. If we don't have it, we'll find it for you, or we'll create it for you, or we'll put you in touch with someone who can answer your question. So feel free to reach out to myself. I think the next slide just shows the future webinars that we have coming up. So February 9th, we'll be talking about recruiting and retaining meal sites. We'll be talking about planning and partnerships on the 23rd. And then March 9th, we will be talking about developing an outreach and marketing plan, because I know Michelle touched on that a little bit, but that is also a really key component of summer food programs. So the next slide has my contact information. I would just reiterate, if you have any questions or want to follow up or get in touch with any of our speakers, I would be happy to facilitate that. I don't see any questions really in the Q&A, which means that I think we all just did an amazing job and we're very thorough. I did see in the chat, someone had a question around how do you get kids to drink milk on a hot summer day? A lot of milk is wasted at our sites each summer. And I definitely know that that's something that comes up quite a bit in the summer months. And I think that was just directed to hosts and panelists. So I don't think everyone could see it. But Rick mentioned offering super cold milk and flavored milks might help with consumption of milk at lunch and supper. You can plan menus around juice at snacks and consider access to drinking water at each site. And then just mention the Dairy Council. And yes, Dairy Councils can be great partners at summer meal sites. And then I guess one question we did come through is, does anyone use Link to Feed to track meals electronically? So I think this may be asking about any of those electronic trackers for meals. And maybe I think that may be directed just to Michelle as the school or a sponsor, but it sounds like you may have other tools that you use for tracking meals. So if you want to speak to what you use, and maybe we can wrap up on that question.
So I guess just to clarify, tracking meal, so sites themselves were very similar to Florida, where the Maryland does that for the state of Maryland. So no matter what county you put in your address, you'll find a site. And so we're obviously included within that Maryland. Now, we're talking about track meals electronically. We don't actually do electronic tracking. We do tally sheets and we do paper copies, and that's all sent in like by our staff that send in that. So I don't know if that's fully answering that question.
Yeah, no, I think that's helpful. And the person who asked that, we would be happy to have a follow-up conversation about that. I think it is just around tracking meals as they're being served, to track meals in attendance. So we can have a follow-up conversation about that. But yeah, just in the interest of time, I wanted to go ahead and close out today's webinar. I just wanted to thank again Michelle, Kalitha, Rachel, and Rick for sharing such wonderful information. And there's a lot of interest around the tracking, so we'll make sure to follow up on that. And like I mentioned, all of the links and tools and resources will be included in the follow-up email. And in the meantime, if you do have any questions for us or any of our presenters today, feel free to reach out. But just wanted to say again, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that you can join us on one of our future webinars. So have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye.